I think we can get it started.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Welcome, everyone. My name's Lena Rife. I'm one of the YAF committee members. We're very happy to have everyone here. For those of you that don't know, YAF is the Young Architects Forum, and we're a group within AIA Chicago for emerging professionals with about 0 to 10 years of experience. We host different panels, networking events, and professional growth events. If you are interested in getting more involved in YAF or other events, you can check out the AIA website. We are planning on having a YAF community meeting this upcoming April, probably later in the month. So kind of check back in for more information about that. We're also looking to host a YAF portfolio review. This will be April 5th from 6 to 8 p.m. It's not up on the website yet, but it's coming soon. So keep an eye out for that. And now for the main event, I'll introduce Raquel and Holly. Raquel is an architect and interior architect with a background in planning, architectural, and design strategies. As an architect at Smith Group Chicago, her work is focused mostly on higher education and workplace. She currently serves as a co-chair for AIA YAF. She also serves in the committee for the AIA Interior Architecture Knowledge Community. And we also are joined by Holly Harris. Holly is a healthcare planner and architect in the Chicago office of Smith Group. She is the past co-chair of the AIA Chicago Healthcare Knowledge Community and the AIA Illinois Young Architect Representative. Additionally, Holly serves as the chair of the AIA Illinois EP Network and is a senior editor of YAF's Connection magazine. Ladies, I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Before we start the presentation, one of the main things we wanted all of you to know is that we're intending for this presentation to be participatory. So we want to be interactive. I know this is harder nowadays on virtual, but we have the chat function here. So feel free to put questions, write comments, place thoughts while we're speaking. And also we'll have some questions that we want you to interact with. And hopefully later by the end of the presentations, people will be able to unmute if they have any comments or thoughts as well. With that said, Holly, if you can, let's kick it off with the next slide. So why are we here? Holly and I both work at Smith Group, like was mentioned, and we started learning about leadership styles through Toastmasters, which was an international communications club that we brought into our office. Basically, we were very interested in how to become better leaders and how to have more effective communication. Through that, we started learning about all of these styles and started reading more because we were very interested and we thought this was something that everyone should know about. We discovered that like personality styles, each person will have different specific qualities that will define them as a leader. So we believe that it's important, like I said, to share what we learned, especially with all of the emerging professionals who are navigating their career, both being led by others and paving their own approach in leadership. And understanding your personal strengths and preferences can help you adjust your leadership style to be effective in any environment that you're in with different individuals and different teams. Next slide.
So we did prepare some learning objectives for this presentation today, just so you can have a clear expectation of what we do plan to go through. So we do want you to be able to understand qualities of impactful and effective leadership by the end of the presentation today. We also want you to be able to apply what you learn to the practice of architecture specifically, but you can also take it beyond your professional world as well. And then we also want you to be able to understand the qualities and styles of leadership of others. So that way, when you are in a professional environment and you have a leader, you can learn how to adapt your communication or what you are practicing just to be a more effective team. And then lastly, we want you to be able to engage with emerging professionals and learn about successful leadership. So that's why we kind of want it to be interactive today, so we can learn from each other and just kind of take those lessons beyond tonight. And so the main goal after those bullet points is we really want you to be able to leave today with the ability to lead with confidence and mindfulness. And how we're kind of going to go through the presentation, there is some formal elements. It's educational, but we also want it to be interactive. But we're really going to focus on the beginning of what leadership is and the different types of people who are leaders. You may not consider yourself a leader at this moment, in the presentation, but by the end, we want you to be able to recognize some of the qualities that you have for leadership. Then we will go into a little more detailed discussion on the specific styles. Raquel and I will give examples of each. And then we really want to have interactive discussion throughout the presentation. We do have a few poll questions and kind of quizzes for you to put into the chat. So we really want you to be able to do that, and then we can have a discussion about it. And then as we progress through the content, we continuously want you to be able to reflect on what you're learning and ask yourself the question of what kind of leader do you aspire to be? And so as we transition to the specific qualities of leadership, we do want to start with a few poll questions. So just to get your fingers warm, although you've probably been working all day, so they're probably tired. But first question we did want to ask is, in your mind, based on your experiences, what is the #1 quality a leader must possess? So we have 5 on the screen: intelligence, charisma, perseverance, trust, and communication. So we'll give everyone that we have on, it's like about 20 people. There's not really a right or wrong answer. We do have one that Raquel and I have identified that we believe is probably at the top of the list. But we want to hear from the audience, so get some in here. Nice, nice.
I love the answers, because the two that everyone has been answering are the two that we've been going back and forth a lot on as well.
Yep. All right, so what we would deem as most correct at this point in time would be D, but communication is also very important as well. But the reason for us choosing trust is we really believe that successful leadership must start with trust. You have to trust your team to make the right decisions, to execute those tasks based on the guidance that you provide them. And then you also need to trust that your leader is advocating for the best team members in the project. Kind of to summarize that is, we believe that leaders that don't trust their team, don't trust themselves, they often practice with micromanagement, which can create a more toxic working environment. Communication and intelligence, charisma, and perseverance are also very important, but you can have excellent communication skills, and if you aren't trusting of your team, you may over communicate and just not have as an successful experience. So we really do believe trust is the #1 quality.
Okay, so for the second poll question, at what level in your career can you become a leader? As a firm owner, project manager, lead designer, or emerging professional? And once again, put the answers in the chat. Awesome. So yes, you are leaders in all. There's different types of leaders for different levels, but the main point of this whole presentation is for you to understand that even as an emerging professional, you are a leader. So anyone here has the capacity to lead and inspire. A title won't necessarily define a leader. The actions do. And within your firm, within your office, or outside of your office, as an emerging professional, you'll have different levels of leadership that you're gonna be working with, whether with your peers or with your other teams. Next slide. So what is leadership? Let's start with the main question of the day, right? If we were to go into the dictionary and define the word leader, it would be a person that rallies people to move toward a better vision, right? And then if you search for the word leadership, it's the action of leading a group of people or an organization. These are all true, but there are so many characteristics and traits that define a leader. And today we're gonna start breaking down some of them. An important word that we think that we need to use in front of leader is effective. So effective leaders are those that empower others to accomplish personal goals and move a team to successful completion of projects. Leaders are always in a position to model behaviors for others, and they provide guidance and feedback and help others improve their skills. While a person may be both a leader and a manager, we all need to understand that there's a difference in the skill sets needed for these roles. Managing deals a lot with the planning, the organizing, and facilitating specific tasks, while leading deals with the people, the individuals, and the groups. A manager can also be a leader. Great leaders will always inspire others, and they will excel at communication and display a very high level of personal integrity. Next slide. So here you can see five qualities of leadership. These are all actions that any leader should take and practice. So first, we determined that you have to be an effective communicator, right? Identifying clear expectations and goals within your team, understand communication techniques and what tools work best for each and all of the team members. Along with that, you have to always try and maintain a positive attitude. Remain optimistic about situations and interactions to raise the team morale. Positive leaders will always have the ability to inspire team members to success. Then, keeping an open mind. This will allow one to lead without a bias. It'll allow a leader to listen to others, consider new ideas and incorporate those, understand that everyone in the team has a voice. Then a leader must possess integrity. This helps build the team trust. It is also reflected when leaders give credit to those who deserve it and recognize the team. Lastly, and one of the ones I consider the most important, is leading by example. All of you here have probably heard the phrase that goes, actions speak louder than words. So that means guide others through your behavior instead of your words. It is not enough to just tell someone what to do. You have to embody those expectations and deliver those outcomes as well. You should inspire others to emulate your own behavior. Next slide.
So now that you have heard some of the overarching attributes of a leader, Raquel detailed, we have another interactive question for you. So in the chat box, in what aspects of your current professional or personal life, personal responsibilities, do you consider yourself a leader? So if you, after what you've just heard, in what aspects do you consider yourself a leader? And you can put it in the chat. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's just interactive discussion. All right, maybe we're struggling a little bit, but that's okay because we have examples. Examples of leaders at different levels. And we did kind of cater this a little bit more to our audience for tonight. But if you are someone who is organizing an ARE study group, you are acting in a leadership role. If you plan an event for your office, which Raquel and I do too much of probably, you're acting in a leadership quality because you're rallying people together towards a common goal. Coaching a sports team is also a leadership action. Volunteering, moderating. This one I try to stress a lot to emerging professionals. If you do not have experience speaking in any realm or you want to get more involved, the best way to break into that is being a moderator for a panel event. Teaching is a form of leadership. Mentoring is a form of leadership. If you're serving on a committee or board position in any organization, like Lena today introduced us as part of YAF, she is serving in a leadership role. But ultimately, finding a problem and championing a solution on your day-to-day task, when you do that, you're acting in a form of leadership because you're not waiting for someone else to give you that responsibility. You're taking it on head first and acting in that manner.
So now we're going to get to the bigger meat of the discussion, and we're going to talk about leadership styles. So what are leadership styles? These are broader concepts that will define a leader's overall approach. It's basically a clarification of how a person behaves while leading a group. It's characteristic behaviors that you use when leading, when motivating or guiding your team. So as you start to learn about some of the people who you think as great leaders, you can immediately start seeing that there's very big differences in the way they lead, and they all succeed in their own way. We all have a mix of all the styles we're going to talk about today. And actually, successful leaders know how to use a mix of styles because we're always going to be working with people that have different styles themselves and different personalities. So we just need to practice a little bit and learn when to apply them, how to apply them, and who to apply them with. So the styles we're going to talk about today are, next slide. There's several, as you can see here. We're going to go through coaching, affiliative, altruistic, pace setting, democratic, authoritative, bureaucratic, and innovative. important thing to say here, Holly and I did tons of research and reading in order to find this. Every main source might have one or two that's different, but they all have that same idea that as you learn about these styles, it's like learning about a personality. It's just knowing when to apply them. So I'm going to start with the first one. You go to the next slide, which is the coaching style. So leaders that have this style are known to inspire, engage, and appreciate their team members. This style has its core values in support, guidance, partnership, and mentorship. These leaders act like coaches who communicate well, and they try to enable creativity within the team. They challenge the individual and they help build their skills. It is a very highly valued type of leadership in today's workplace because right now we're in more flatter, less than hierarchical workplaces. Yet research has shown that this type of leadership style is not as often used. And the reason is because many people believe they don't have the time to help others. So this mindset is a little bit unfortunate because the investment you can make on an employee at the beginning will provide abundant returns later. But if you wait longer, it's going to take you more time to solve problems. If you coach someone correctly, they're going to in turn be coaching other people in return, and so on and so forth. Some qualities of these leaders are constructive feedback, effective communication, sharing, and listening to the team. Delegation is very effective, and employees are always given the opportunity to use their strength and grow their skills. Micromanagement is very discouraged within this style. Instead, the leader will enable others to succeed and reach their personal goals and try new things. This style is not very effective when those that are being mentored are adverse to change. And it's very resource intensive, like I mentioned at the beginning, because it does require time and energy, but it is a good investment. This is very effective when you're on a one-on-one setting with one of your mentees or coachees, and when you're willing to invest in your team's growth. This type of leaders will thrive when team members aren't completely developed in their potential. And let's be honest, we can always keep growing no matter where we are in our careers. There's a lot of coaches and mentors that we found through our research that even people that are very successful, like, Warren Buffett was Bill Gates' mentor, and Steve Jobs actually mentored Zuckerberg. And if you go back to history, Socrates mentored Plato. So you can always find a coach within your firm or even outside of your firm to help you grow within your career. The next style, it's a little bit similar. It's called the Affiliative Style. So this type of leader is a master of relationships. They know how to build relationships. They know how to keep them. The style lies within like accentuating teamwork and harmony. They create a sense of belonging between team members. This type of leader focuses on people's emotional needs and relies on providing positive feedback, recognizes and rewards team members for a good job. This leader tends to avoid conflict, so it's not as successful of a style when the leader has difficulty giving negative feedback and performance is not very emphasized in the team. But it is very successful when there is a need to motivate others during times of heavy workload, stressful circumstances, and to mend bad feelings that might have developed in the group. It helps increase morale and actually repair broken trust. A fun example that we found about this when we were reading was Joe Torre, which is the ex-manager of the New York Yankees. He was an affiliative leader. If you can think of leading a sports team, especially the New York Yankees, that's not an easy task. There's could be a lot of egocentric players that you have to deal with. Yet in this, he was one of the managers that managed to completely hold the team together by building a sense of harmony among all the teammates. This is a great leadership style to be combined with others as well. Next slide.
So the third one that we want to highlight for you is altruistic style. And if you have heard the word altruism before, then you may quickly connect that this leadership style aligns with leaders who are selfless and that often go out of their way to keep a pulse on the well-being of their team. This type of leader truly does care about their team and practices with a strong sense of empathy and respect. And this leader is also internally motivated by being able to serve others. So they do get joy from serving in an altruistic manner. Every decision that they make is ethical, and communication is intended to empower others to succeed. So when in a situation of conflict or challenge, an altruistic leader will actively listen to everyone on the team before drawing a conclusion and proposing a solution. So they definitely want to hear everybody's voice. A downfall of this style, however, is that the leader sometimes fails to apply a long-term outlook because really their greatest focus is about everyone's perspective, which can derail a strategic goal if they do lose focus. But ultimately, this is a type of leader. This type of leader, it is critical that their team has a trusted chemistry together, and they will go above and beyond to sustain that high morale among the team members. I think personally, all forms of leader should try to integrate some forms of the qualities of altruistic leadership, because as many of you listening could attest, team morale and work positive culture is very crucial in retaining talent and avoiding burnout in the workplace. So it's really important to take some of the qualities of an altruistic leader and try to apply them to a combination of the other styles. The next one that we wanted to highlight is called pace setting. This leadership style is often identified with type A leaders, which supports why this style often moves with purpose and speed, hence the name. This type of leader has a high focus on maintaining productivity. And once they have an expectation in mind, they do expect their team to meet that expectation without fault. A pace setter will also lead by example. So they often do inspire others in their team to reach a higher standard because they have that expectation and they hold themselves to it as well. However, this style only works well with other self-motivated team members. So when someone is not performing to the expectation that this leader wants them to, a pace setting leader can often become frustrated in the scenario. This leadership style, you do really need to challenge yourself to provide a more detailed instructions if you have that higher standard of outcome, especially if the team that you're working with is doing a new type of task or not as familiar with the pace setting expectations that you expect of them. But really, to conclude, this leadership style, they do thrive on achievement, and they often do embrace a new challenge or project as another opportunity for success. So they're kind of almost fearless in their approach, is that nothing is too difficult to take on, and they will go at it with a high standard and won't stop working until they meet that goal.
Thank you, Holly. So before going into the remaining 4 styles, just a little remembering that, as you can see, all the styles we already mentioned, they can be very effective at some moments and they might not work at other moments. And that's why we stress at the beginning of this presentation that it's important for you to just know yourself and know the situations you're in. And if you need to use some other type of leadership, depending on the team member that you're working with, then you switch it up. It's all about empathy here, all about understanding who you're leading and how you want to lead them. But also remember, this is to understand your leaders as well. Understand why your leader might be responding some way or the other. Now I'm going to go to the next one, which is the democratic leadership style. So this type of leadership is one in which team members are more involved in the decision-making process. Everyone is encouraged to participate, to give their opinion, and to exchange all of their ideas. This leader uses communication and collaboration to receive input for decision-making within the team. This style has its core in team equality, but the leader of the group is still there to offer guidance and control, while they allow others to occasionally take the lead. This style can be ineffective when time is limited or if team members do not have the knowledge or expertise to make quality contributions to the project, because that could ultimately lead in poor decision-making. It can also lead to occasions where some individuals' opinions are overridden. If everyone is trying to talk at the same time, then the person that always has the bigger voice will be the one to be heard. So we just have to understand what type of situation we can be totally democratic. The approach is very effective when the knowledge of the entire team is needed to solve a problem, to find direction. And all of these democratic leaders will always be there to inspire trust and respect among their followers. Next slide. Authoritative leadership. This is a very interesting one, very controversial, and yet it's also very needed sometimes. So one article that struck us when they explain the following differences between authoritative and authoritarian, and I want to explain those two before we start. So authoritative is defined as commanding, self-confident, and likely to be respected. Authoritarian, on the other hand, is defined as someone who enforces strict obedience to authority, even at the expense of someone's personal freedom. So what we're talking here about is authoritative leadership styles. So this style is best used when a new vision is needed or when a path to the vision is not always clear. This leader provides a long-term direction and will focus on all of the end goals. They provide clear expectations for what needs to be done, when it should be done, and how it should be done. They usually have more experience and knowledge than those that they're leading. There is also a very clear division between the leader and the members. And these authoritarian leaders can make decisions independently with little or no input from the group. So this style could be ineffective because it could create dysfunctional and hostile environments. Yet it is very well applied to situations where there is little time for group decision making and a need for rapid and decisive actions. It works when the leader is the most knowledgeable member of the group, and it is effective when a change in vision is required. This one is not a leadership style to ever use by itself. It's one like you saw when you need to make a decision or you're working with someone that needs clear guidance and direction and cannot do it by themselves, then yes. But as I mentioned, it could create some micromanaging levels that not everyone's going to be okay with. That's why it's important to know the team you're working with. There's people that don't need to be micromanaged or told what to do all the time. Next slide.
And so coming close to the end of the styles, but two more left. So this one, bureaucratic style, I really like to think that this one is the stepsister of authoritative that Raquel just explained about, mostly because a bureaucratic leader still operates under a clear chain of command, and they really do like to enforce a rule-based framework. But sometimes this style does get a bad reputation because the leader's decisions are absolute, and they really do expect that their team or those who are working under them to comply immediately. But the strength of this approach is that decisions can be made quickly. And when you don't have a lot of time on your hands, the pure bureaucratic approach can be really critical to apply to the situation. Another benefit is that under a bureaucratic leader, everyone does know exactly what they're supposed to do, and the responsibilities are very clear. So oftentimes, if your project manager or your team leader is practicing in this style, you know the expectations, and you're probably trying to hit a very clear and set deadline, as architects do all the time. So there are qualities of this that we do use in our career. Sometimes this style is not received well from team members who are highly skilled because they feel somewhat of a sense of micromanagement, someone else laying out tasks for them that they internally already know that they need to do. However, if you have a team that does require a little bit more discipline to meet goals and deadlines, then the qualities of a bureaucratic leadership style can be really, really helpful in keeping everyone on task. And then the last one that we wanted to highlight for you today is the innovative style. And I like to say that we save this leadership style to the end because we can really imagine that anyone in our industry likely possesses some form of innovative leadership. At the heart of an innovator, it is really you have the vision for the future. And this leader does thrive on those visionary goals. And they really do motivate their team with their enthusiasm towards that forward-thinking approach. And also for innovation to occur, creativity is key. And I could probably say everyone on our call today is a creative. So this leader will push their team to break the mold and challenge the team with future forward thinking. And you now may be able to see kind of how that connection to our industry as practicing architects. Innovative leaders do work collaboratively. So example, like in our studios, we work with other people on a daily basis. We also, if you're in an office with multiple disciplines, you may work with engineers or landscape architects. So you really have to have fluid communication to reach an innovative goal. The downfall of this style is that sometimes it is associated with risk because you are kind of reaching towards the unknown in many situations. So if you have a personality type that does want to keep things safe, then and also have a confidence in the known outcome, this leadership style may make you a little bit nervous or cause you a little bit anxiety, but we really want to encourage you to kind of push through that uncertainty because there's a lot of great qualities in an innovative leader. Another downfall is this leader could take a little bit longer to make decisions because they really are weighing multiple creative solutions. I feel like when I was reading through this, it reminded me of studio in college because it never ends, right? There's always another opportunity. So you really do have to, at some point in time, tell yourself and your team that this is as far as we're going to take it and kind of hit that goal. But this is a really effective leadership style and to integrate into the other ones because it really does, in kind of the bigger perspective of things, allow us to challenge the status quo of how things are currently operating, which is always great.
So now that you heard the 8 leadership styles, we want to start hearing a little bit from you. So here comes a next full question. Which one do you think you identify the most of all of these leadership styles? Feel free to write more than one if you identify to 2 or 3 at the same time. And soon enough, I'm going to have us unmute if anyone's willing to say this out loud. Or also, if you're willing to say this out loud and talk about it, please unmute and go for it. Anyone on the chat? What do you identify with? I know that's coming up, but pace setting and coaching. Yep. Holly, do you identify with any in particular?
So I know I'm a pace setter, but after doing the research, I really learned where I need to change some of those methods or approaches because I have a high expectation for myself and means I have a high expectation for others. And sometimes I may be a little more disappointed if our expectations aren't aligned. So as a pace setting leader, if I want something to be a certain outcome, I need to make sure I communicate it correctly. But then also if it's not that way, then I have to go back and coach or apply a different type of style just to make sure that if I have a goal that we want to reach, we can get to it together. So I'm definitely pace setting first. And I can't remember what my second one was, but I know I feel like this learning about styles, leadership styles is kind of like taking personality tests. I think as you grow over time, you may change with the different challenges that you get presented with. So
awesome. Yeah. Is anyone in the chat willing to unmute and say why they relate to one of the styles more than the others, or why they want to use one of those? I love hearing Holly's voice, but would love to hear someone else's.
I can start, kick us off a little bit. Holly, I was glad you said what you did because I was nervous putting pace setting as mine, but whenever you read the description, I was like, oh, that might be me. Sometimes I have high goals for my team and myself. So I think that's what makes it hard. But then just describing these other like leadership styles, I think is really important because it helps you kind of understand, okay, if this scenario isn't working, what can you kind of lean on? And so lately I've been trying to kind of work into a coaching one to kind of help maybe some of the people that are below me or just learning certain software or stuff like that, and kind of come at it from that direction.
Anyone else?
All right, you want to go to the next, Raquel?
Yep.
Okay.
So we have an open discussion and a couple of questions. Holly, would you like to do the questions first and then go back to the open discussion?
I'm trying to remember our order. This one first?
Oh yeah, let's do that one.
Okay.
We kind of started talking about this right now, and Lena talk a little bit about it as well. But as we said, you are a type of leader to some people, but you also have leaders yourself. So we're gonna kick it off with asking, what type of leader do you want to have? Based on the way you work and on your personality, who do you want leading you, or that they take that approach with you? And I'll have Holly kick it off so that people can warm up the chat or their voices.
So I think if you are a pace setter, you can appreciate a pace setter leader because you kind of go on the same path of things. But reflecting more on just beyond the leadership styles is I really enjoy leaders that do, one, lead by example, but two, give me challenges. They can give me tasks to do, and maybe they want to coach me a little bit, which is great. But I also really appreciate just saying, hey, Holly, here's something I want to be done. Go figure it out. Because I really do thrive in kind of that learning process. So I really like leaders that trust me to take on that challenge and kind of apply my own way of thinking to solving a problem. So I'm a leader that's probably not as hands-on, but is trusting enough to let me solve something, but then they're also there when I need guidance. They can be ready for me to call them or, review something and kind of bounce off ideas kind of as a partnership in the task at hand.
Similar to you, I think I've thought about this a lot, and I would love to have, and that's the type of leaders I feel I've had at work all the time, which are democratic leadership and coaching leadership. And when I say democratic, is because I'm in the same wavelength of I want someone to let me push myself to achieve something and work towards it, because I know that I can set my own times. I know when the deadline is, and I don't need someone to be managing me all the time. But the reason I love coaching is because I see coaches in different ways, not only in a project. When I find a coach in the office, they sort of become my mentor as well. It's someone that I can not only ask a question about a detail in a project, but if we're talking back and forth, like one of my coaches is very involved in AIA, and because of him, I started getting involved even more this past year. It's just they can show you what they're doing, and you can always be learning from another person and growing through conversations and through just sitting next to them or calling them. Anyone else?
Yeah, anyone? I know Daniela shared in the chat. Is there anyone else that kind of wants to speak up?
I think the coaching, this is Catherine, I think the coaching style, leadership style, based off the description you guys read, really helps develop future leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So out of the other styles, some of them are maybe more people pleasers or maybe more focused on the task at hand. But I really felt, based off the description, that a coaching style leader is helping develop the next set. They know when to maybe take a step back. And I always believe in the idea of lead to follow and follow to lead. So you have followers, people under you who are taking your direction, and a good leader will know when to take a step back and give that person more ability to kind of step up in a role or take something on. So I think that's, I also would aspire to be a coaching type leader as well.
Great, thank you for sharing.
Isabel also shared in the chat, coaching and democratic, and that would be the kind of leader that she aspires to be as well. And to that question, we can move on to what type of leader you aspire to be, which I feel that it's interesting that the one that I want to have, I also want to be, but I also think I need to work on other things. So I've always thought that I want to be a coach leader. I love mentoring. Any capacity that I can mentor or even go, beyond work to schools and mentor is something that I admire in anyone, and I would like to do, because I think that only by helping others can we all succeed. You can't just be leading in the front and everyone falling in the back. The more we all know together, the better we're gonna solve a problem. And then, interestingly enough, one thing that I think I need to work on a little bit more is on the authoritative part of it, through some moments in the past, because I've always loved when a leader lets me do what I want because they trust me. I've tend to wanted to do that with everyone that I'm leading in a project. That doesn't always work. I've learned that sometimes some people might need more direction, and they might not know what they want to do or need to do. So they need to be, exactly told. And like I said, authoritative is not something that you just do. It's a little thing that you include with a mix of other leadership styles. So it's something that I need to learn a little bit more of. And finally, I also want to be altruistic. I think that along with coaching, relationships are at the core of any firm. I'm very much about empatheticness, or however you say that, sorry. Empathy. I'm very much about empathy, and I think that keeping relationships within a team is extremely important, because if people are not getting along, you're not going to get the best results. And that doesn't mean you're going to be the mom of the team, but it just means that you're going to try to keep everything at peace and optimistic throughout the hardest times. What about you, Holly, or anyone else?
I can agree on applying the authoritative position and just kind of what we do as architects, at different levels of the project. You don't need to go as far into a certain level of design. So if you're working with a team, and you can have the quality to just make that decision and say, this is good enough for now, or this is all we need at this moment in time, or you can coach and guide just with the long-term vision at hand. I think that's a really good quality to remember and possess, and not always get lost in the details of what we're doing. But I agree with the altruistic as well. I think that's something that I continuously want to be better at personally too, beyond my professional situation, and just being able to understand that everyone's in a different scenario or situation in life. And sometimes we have to remember that we have a life outside of work. So if there are certain things, if people aren't performing and for some whatever reason, and they may be stressed because you have life challenges happening, maybe stepping back and just asking, how are you doing? Are you okay? Do you need to talk about anything? I have a coach in my office that she does this to me all the time because she knows I'm really stressed, but I really appreciate that she really is applying that altruistic approach and thinking about me more beyond my performance. So I would like to be like that as well.
I had to mute myself because the dog is barking. I don't know if you can hear it. Does anyone else have any thoughts that they would like to say before we move on to the next slide? No?
Okay.
Keep on going. What challenges have you faced regarding leadership? And like I mentioned before, so I'm going to give you an example, was the not being authoritative enough with someone that was fairly new and recent to our company. And I was trying to have them do whatever they wanted, and that didn't work out. Has any of you ever faced any challenges regarding being a leader or being led, and you didn't know how to talk to your leader about it, or something similar? Holly, have you?
I'll say one thing that I've definitely learned over the past few years is more effective communication and leadership. And I'm going to give more specific example. As architects, we work with consultants a lot, engineering or other partners, and we often communicate via email. It's also great to pick up the phone, but sometimes you may not be getting the answers or what you are trying to receive fast enough, or maybe you wrote an email and you didn't give clear directions, so then the response is not what you're looking for. So as someone who is leading, let's say, design coordination for a project, you really need to be precise in your communication skills. And if there is some form of action that you're wishing to receive, you need to be very blunt about it and spell it out and not really hide it within multiple words within your request. So I think as a leader, just making sure you're effective in your communication style is something that we continue to learn as we mature in our professional career.
And someone answered in the chat, Holly, I don't know if you're able to see the chats. One issue I've experienced is not understanding that I need to adjust my leadership style for different teams and team members. This one is an amazing comment, by the way, Michael, because we've did this presentation once and we got a comment saying, I don't need to adjust my style to anyone and I don't need to understand how other people work. And we try to understand where that person was coming from. No, you're not gonna, change your personality for every type of person. But like we talked about here, it's more about empathy. It's understanding that maybe the way someone's working or how they're reacting to something might be because of the way they lead or the way they've learned how to lead, and vice versa. Do you want me to keep reading? I don't know if you can see the chats.
Yeah, I can see. I do want to hit on Michael's a little bit more though. I hope after reading through these styles, Michael, you can see a few of those qualities that you could adjust or adapt. It really depends on your team dynamic though. I don't think there's not a perfect style, and it depends on who you're working with and how they communicate. For example, if I know, for example, my leaders, they're really busy. They're inundated with emails. They have meetings all day. So to adjust how we interact, I'll pick up the phone and call them sometimes. Or if I'm in the office, I'll go up to them to speak to them if I need something. So I think just really being able to recognize how different people operate and then changing your approach is more successful, and it'll make you less frustrated as well.
I want to say something else on Michael's too. Some other thought I had of another team interaction is sometimes I go by knowing if someone needs a lot of explanations and a lot of answers, or if they can go by with one single direction. I think that's very important because sometimes people do need an email that states everything, or one of your leaders. I have leaders who want to know exactly what has gotten done. So I do take my time. Like, hey, I know I need to write this for you. And there's others that they don't need to know anything until the day of the presentation. So like Holly said, it's just understanding what works best, but at the same time speaking up, because if it's not working out between you and your leader, or if you're leading someone, then a conversation needs to happen, because we can't adapt to every single little scenario. We have to understand how each other works and have a conversation about it. And if you're coming from the approach that you're talking to a leader, I would say don't be afraid to speak up, because they're there to guide you, and that's their job. So they would probably want to hear what's going on. And if they don't, then you have the wrong leader, I'm gonna say, because that's what a leader is. And so don't be afraid to speak up, because that's the most important thing, I feel.
Yeah, and I think that goes both ways, because if you are leading someone and the expectation that you have is not being met, have a conversation of what can I help you with for us to reach this goal? Or vice versa, if I'm struggling to do something because I'm getting hit from all sides of requests, then I need to have the perspective to go to my leader and say, hey, this is not going to be able to happen right now. I need more time, or hey, I need help, or just open communication in those scenarios, just so that way everyone can reach the goals.
And Daniela wrote something on a similar trend of what we've been talking about. That's one of the challenges is to avoid conflict and to have more productivity. If I'm reading that correctly. She's very new to the leadership role, tending to give more freedom to those that she works with, and needs to take into account with different groups. So this one, and I don't know if I'm reading it correct, the first portion of your comment, avoiding conflict, is a big one. because sometimes we need to face conflict head on instead of avoiding it, and get to it right at the start, because then it gets to the point where team members are just ignoring each other or being very passive aggressive with each other. But if you face it head on, it might be easier to resolve than if you wait. The conflict's just gonna get bigger. That's my own personal opinion on that.
And I also feel like in our very virtual world now, things can be misconstrued via email or text or chat. So if you are really like going back and forth, kind of butting heads in a nice way with someone, maybe pick up the phone and talk through it. I think sometimes just being able to speak about it, like, what do you really mean this? Or, you know, I'm not understanding this correctly, can help get through those hurdles.
Well, we have 6 more minutes and 2 questions, but we wanted to see, before the questions, anyone else had any comments or thoughts? Just remember, this is based on our research and our own personal opinions. So please, you know, make your own opinion based on all of this, and whatever works best for all of you.
And Isabel, if my leaders are busy too, and I don't know how busy yours are, what their calendar looks like, but if I can't get a hold of them, I just throw a meeting on their calendar and I make them talk to me. So you can definitely have that approach, hopefully in your office. I hope that would work.
Yes, I agree. The virtual world has created many challenges, especially to be a leader. And I wish we had 30 more minutes to just discuss hybrid work. It's very different. You're not sitting next to the people you're working with every day. You don't know what they're doing. Communication is only based on an email, or if you get to, you know, talk to the person or create a meeting. So again, maybe we should make a whole nother meeting on how to effectively work through hybrid communications and hybrid work. Okay, so next question. Okay, yes to that. We'll work on it. Yeah, we'll work on that. A summer intern is having trouble navigating the project model and has messaged you asking for help. You're tired, you're busy, and you aren't their direct boss. How do you respond? Do you think it's to change your status to not disturb and ignore their message? Tell them to ask someone else? Reply that you don't know the answer, even though you do, but you don't want to help? Or message that you will call in 10 minutes once you finish a current task so you both can work through it together? What do you think?
A, B, C, or D in the chat.
Okay, D.
Yep.
D. Okay, so D is the most ideal situation where you tell the person, I'm gonna message you back and call in 10 minutes. Like we've been saying, as leaders, we wanna be able to help our team members. But we do know that you might actually be busy all day long and be in meetings. So if you are, just make sure that you can connect this person and tell them like, hey, if you can wait till tomorrow, great. If not, let me communicate, put you with this person that will be able to help you. Just make sure that you're not leaving them hanging, that you can either help them or direct them to the correct person. But if you do know the answer, we hope you could help them. Next question and last.
Right. So this is a good one, and we will all probably face this in our career at some point. So you are a project leader and there was a mistake on the drawing set that is now adding $15,000 to the project cost. In this scenario, who is to blame and should be held accountable? A, the entry-level designer who modeled the content and modeled it incorrectly. B, the project architect who stamped the drawings. C, the QC reviewer who overlooked the mistake. Or D, myself as the leader of the team. I know we've got some thrown in here. I like what I'm seeing.
People in my room right here just said D.
So to kind of explain this one, in our industry, we are so team-based, but in our industry, everything we do, you know, it's not one person doing it all. So when a mistake happens, it's never the one person's fault. It's kind of a string of events. So if a strong leader will take the accountability for their team, because ultimately they are the ones in charge of the outcome and righting the wrong in this scenario. And if you are someone, or if you've experienced this, pointing fingers and placing blame is a really poor form of leadership. And instead, we should use mistakes like this as learning opportunities and discussion points for what can be done next time. So say it was, I'm entry level and I drew it wrong, and ultimately maybe I was the start of this chain of mistake. You know, people missed it in review going through. Granted, in a QC process, we may not see every detail, but what you should do in this scenario as a leader is kind of talk holistically to the team and say, hey, this is something that we issued incorrectly, or the intent was not clear in our drawings. So as we go into the next project, this is what we're going to do differently. Or you can have an open conversation with your team of what everyone thinks that we should do differently, but it's always a we and not Holly drew that wrong. It's team-based, and a strong leader will hold that accountability for everyone.
Yeah. Just remember, if you're in an OAC call and you're the leader representing the project team there and no one else is there, it doesn't look good that you try to blame everyone on your team for something that the client might not like. It's best to say, yes, that's our mistake, that's my mistake, and then you go and talk to your team. It doesn't work to be pointing fingers at someone who's not in the room either, to be able to talk to the problem.
And I see Isabel, the QC reviewer is probably the end of that chain that missed it. So if I'm that person and I missed it, then maybe I know moving forward, I need to look at that in more detail in the next project, if it's of a similar scale and detail. So.
Well, it's 7 p.m., so right on time. But in summary, like you see here, understanding what your strengths are, what your preferences are, can help you adjust your leadership style to be effective in any environment with all of the individuals and teams that you're working with. But always remember, you're a leader. It doesn't matter what stage of your career are, you're going to be a leader in some capacity. Holly and I put our links in right here. So feel free to connect with us. Feel free to continue the conversation, because we want to be able to, further this presentation and talk about it a little bit more. I'm going to kick it back to Lena to close the meeting.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Raquel. Thank you, Holly. I think this was really beneficial for people to kind of see how they lead, but then also, working with others that, that they take direction from, and how we can kind of use all those factors to kind of better ourselves within that. This is being recorded, so will it be available up on the AIA website? Raquel, do you know?
Allison would actually be the one. If Allison's here, will this be posted?
It will be posted, yes.
Okay, perfect. So if anybody wants to kind of refer back to it, if you need some pointers or some tips. But thank you again, ladies, and have a great night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.